how much can I bench press? I went and tested just that, and I lifted 100 kilos for 3 reps. Now you might look at me and think, wow, that's not really that impressive. And you're right. So why am I so weak at this exercise? My first excuse was this came after a 3-hour filming gym session here with my friend Jake, and pretty exhausted physically and mentally, but thought, YOLO, why not see how much I can lift with a reasonable amount and testing my 3-rep max. If you take a look at my technique, I'm using more of a close grip benching method because deep down I'm a calisthenics bro. Everything we do is tucked elbow, and by virtue of using this style with the upper body, you're not going to be able to lift as much weight by comparison to lifting with a more flared chest dominant technique. Excuse 2. If you take a look at the lower back, I'm keeping it flat as well. This means that the bar has to travel further by comparison to more of an arch back bench press. So greater range of motion means that I can't lift that extra 5, that extra 10 kilos that I'd love to and maybe you'd expect from me. So knowing that I could take a wider grip and lift more weight, why am I not doing that in this test? Because it's a strength test. You want to see your maximum performance, right? Well, I'm choosing safety over ego in this sense because when I take a wider grip, number one, my shoulder mobility isn't ideal for using more of this flared technique. I lack a lot of shoulder internal rotation, particularly on that left side. So if I'm going to jam up my joints in that position with heavy weight, it's really inviting a lot of injury risk on these precious joints. Because I'm not really used to pressing in this manner, I notice that when I try to do that, I get a lot of sensitivity around that pec. It really does feel like I'm on the verge of tearing something, and I really do not want to do that. Besides, when you're doing a new movement pattern and you're going to put maximum weight on it, that is just a recipe for disaster. So I've learned better over the years, and that's why I'd rather just test it with a grip that is most comfortable for me, even if it doesn't optimize that strength or how much you bench bro. If we take a closer look at my rep speed, I'm doing it quite controlled on that negative, and I'm also pausing when it hits my chest. If you were tasked with lifting the most amount of weight possible, you wouldn't do this because you're not able to get that stretch shortening cycle, the stretch reflex to propel that weight up. So I might as well have handicapped myself a good 5, 10 plus kilos because I didn't just drop it down and push as hard as I could. The bench press is an exercise that I haven't regularly done in my training, and I haven't touched the bench press in a good 1 year at this point in time. So I'm not surprised that I can't lift 120, 130 plus kilos because strength is specific to the exercise that you're doing. You can't expect your general muscle mass and your general strength to be able to put up elite powerlifting numbers, especially if your training doesn't reflect that. So I'm realistic and just sharing with you my current state and what's possible with this little baby body. All right, now we're on the fun part. I want to absolutely rip into my bench press technique and just look at where it's breaking down. First of all, you can see there's a lot of instability at the shoulders. I'm really struggling to keep my scapula retracted during the press. And this is a big no-no when it comes to displaying how heavy you can lift, especially on this exercise. If you have instability, you have a shaky platform in which you're pressing from, your prime mover muscles, your chest, your delts, your triceps, they can't produce their maximum force. So by virtue of this, because I don't have that stable platform, I'm just going to be having a lot of energy leaks during the press, and it is very obvious with my bench press, I'm not a pro. Check out my bar path during the bench press. This is a sign of what not to do, and it shows when someone's not familiar with an exercise, it's inconsistent. The bar's going forward to back. It's not placing consistent on the chest on the way down, and this is really inefficient because your body doesn't know what the hell's going on. And it's very obvious if you watch someone new to benching or someone like myself who's done the exercise before but hasn't done it for a while. and is lifting max weights. A bad habit that I have is losing tightness at the bottom. So I'm pausing it on the chest, but I'm getting really relaxed. I'm coming off tension. I'm letting my shoulders roll. Instead, what I'd prefer is lower it down, keep active tension in those scaps, keep the muscles on tension, and then press from there. You'll be in a better position to do so instead of trying to re-engage the tension. It's not a really good idea. What I also find funny when I'm doing a max bench press or just lifting heavy weights is how you get this full body gyration and shaking happening, because a bench press requires a lot of stability of your body. Your trunk's got to be on point. You have to have that leg drive. And I just find it really cool to see when someone starts shaking around, the body's fighting to stay in position and also press at the same time. It's funny because if you're not familiar with the bench, you think, oh yeah, it's just a upper body pressing exercise for the chest. There's so much more to it. And that really shows when you're pushing it to the limit, it's a new exercise and you're using low reps. I want to contrast that with Jake, who is around 70 kilos and he's lifting 130 kilos on the bench press. This is pretty impressive for a calisthenics bro who predominantly does bodyweight exercises, and he's a strong unit, this guy. You can see he's using a wider grip. He's using a faster tempo to make use of that stretch reflex, using a bit more of an arch to reduce the range of motion so that he can lift more weight. And he hasn't touched the bench press in quite a long time, but has had experience working up to, I think he said 150 kilos at his body weight. So more than double in a 1RM. It's pretty legit strength. It's always motivating when you're training with someone who's stronger than you, because it really raises your standards. Because left to my own devices, I'll be pretty happy with a 100 kilo bench press for 3. But then when you're working with someone who is literally adding 30 kilos to doing that and just showing you what is possible at a lighter body weight, if you train a movement, if you stay dedicated, if you build up your strength, you can really raise the standards of what's possible. So if you have a chance to train with someone in person, a friend that is stronger than you, that is absolute gold. Otherwise, the next best thing is sourcing that motivation from other strong naturals on the internet, and this will raise your own standards and help you unlock your potential. You got to bench to get good at the bench. I'm usually doing dips and handstand push-ups as my primary overhead press. Having general muscle mass, general strength only goes so far. If you want to push it to the limit, you've got to train and get specific. I've realized even more that strength is specific to the ranges that you train. So if you're going for a 1 rep max or a 3 rep max like I did today, but you consistently do more than 6 reps in your training, which is basically what I do, you're going to find it harder to display your maximum strength because you're not working at such heavy weights. And if you're training at more of a moderate intensity, moderate rep ranges, they just don't translate as well to the really low reps. So my training's quite good for hypertrophy, bodybuilding, having some strength. But if I want to blow up that bench or any other exercise, got to train low reps to build up that top end strength. I'm putting this here as my own documentation. So if someday I commit myself to this lift and I'm eventually lifting 315 on that bench, and I can finally call myself a true meathead if I accomplish that feat. So how much do you bench press? Let me know in the comments. In other news, I've got you a gift. I want you to click below to download my free full body calisthenics workout. I'll teach you how to get big and strong with old school bodyweight training.